Good morning. I don't think that Mr. Menon has left anything for us to add. Very comprehensive opening speech. But to everyone here, Senior Minister Thorman, Ravi, and every participant, esteemed colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here today, and we convene to demonstrate the common objective of pushing forward climate agenda. It has proven time and again that climate change is intrinsically linked to our societies, economies, and everyday life. Indeed, climate action experienced increased momentum over the past few years, yet the trajectory has been interrupted by compounded crises of COVID-19, as well as the war in Europe. And this has heightened the cost of the climate agenda and has called for a more integrated and inclusive collaboration by all stakeholders, again echoing a lot of what we just heard. To achieve measurable change in climate agenda, we need to multiply our financial resources and achieve distributional justice across different regions and across the different sectors. The world needs an estimate of $5.7 trillion annually. We just heard that it's a little bit more than that. And this far exceeds the $632 billion that was mobilized just in 2019-2020 from all sources. And this dwarfs tremendously the $100 billion pledge that was done in Copenhagen, and making climate finance the most important, if not profound, challenge for climate action. To decrease this financial gap, we must acknowledge and mend the existing disparities between different regions when it comes to climate finance landscape. And we carry a prominent obligation to understand both the geographic as well as the adaptation and mitigation disparities. To draw on the uneven geographical distribution of climate finance, the costed national determined contribution financing gap in Africa alone is estimated to be around $250 billion, while only $19 billion makes its way to the continent. This is just to give an example of how short we are. Likewise, there exists a huge disparity between the amount of climate finance targeting projects in mitigation as opposed to adaptation, which receives less than 20%. And here, let me just mention that adaptation has become so important in light of what we've seen during this war in Europe, and how food security and water security are extremely important, not just for developing economies, but for the world at large. The needed climate financing will continue to rise over the few years to come, and so does the cost of inaction. Today, it has been anticipated that current trends in climate change could force more than 100 million people into extreme poverty. And the pandemic has revealed that there's no nation alone, irrespective of its abilities, can achieve full sustainable development. This emphasizes the key role of multilateralism to promote sustainable and resilient future. And the private sector has a potential to play a pivotal role in accelerating the transition in a low-carbon pathway. According to the World Bank, even if all MDBs dedicate all their funds to the green transition, it would only amount to around 4% of the needed finance. However, if we shift 1.4% of global private financial assets, this would be sufficient to fill the climate finance gap. I take tremendous pride in representing the government of Egypt as this year's host of COP27, which we hope is going to be an implementation COP. We are working to push action to move from pledges to implementation. The conference, being held in Africa this year, signifies the urgent need to address regional disparities in climate finance and to bring to the forefront the adaptation and resilience needs. It also calls for a more prominent role of the private sector and philanthropies, building on the momentum that has started at COP26. Last November at Glasgow, we organized an event in collaboration with MDBs and the private sector representatives to ask a very critical question. How can we increase climate investments to implementable projects in developing and emerging markets? There was a consensus around the need and urgency to address this matter, yet the mechanisms and tools were not always clear. We have since launched an inclusive consultative process with more than 100 entities representing development partners, MDBs, commercial banks, private sector, philanthropies, think tanks, civil society, including Convergence, to underpin an ambitious and realistic actionable climate agenda that is rooted in the principles of just financing, and equality to developing what is now known as the Sharm el-Sheikh Guidebook for Just Financing. The guidebook emphasizes the need to scale up investments towards climate adaptation and mitigation projects while highlighting the importance of improved access to quality and quantity of climate finance, leaving no one behind through a variety of mechanisms and tools to promote just financing. The guidebook will contribute to fulfilling the information gap for both national governments and investors to reduce the risk and uncertainty associated with climate investments. It identifies key barriers to private investments and proposes solutions to overcome them. More importantly, it addresses the limited access of developing countries to climate funds and thus provides a mapping of capital providers based on their access criteria, risk appetite, regional and sectoral focus, ticket size, and financing instruments. We also propose within it a set of innovative financing models that are able to catalyze climate investments and present successful projects that can be replicated and scaled. The guidebook concludes with an actionable agenda for each stakeholder that lists the roles they could play to achieve just financing outcomes and maximize the effectiveness and efficiency of existing climate finance architecture. The Sharm el-Sheikh Guidebook will be launched during COP27 in Finance Day, and I would like to seize this opportunity to invite all the participants here, which I'm sure will be at Sharm, to the event where we will be presenting the findings and setting forth our common agenda going forward. Taking this framework to the national level and following the endorsement of Egypt's National Climate Change Strategy 2050 and the country's national determined contribution, we identified a set of high priority projects for adaptation and mitigation that are aligned with both national and international climate agendas and launched Egypt's country platform for the nexus of water, food, and energy, the NOWEFI program. NOWEFI, which is an Arabic translation of the phrase fulfilling pledges, aims to accelerate the national climate agenda and provides opportunities for mobilizing climate finance and private investments to support Egypt's green transition, reflecting the interlinkages and the complementarity between climate action and development efforts. Another very important call and action from COP27, climate and development come hand in hand. Through this country platform, we are leveraging Egypt's partnerships with multiple stakeholders to mobilize finance, avail technical assistance, crowd in private investment through innovative financing modalities, including blended finance. It thus offers a unique opportunity for the international community to show solid support to the climate agenda, as identified by the Paris Agreement, and presents a practical demonstration for country ownership that can be replicated in other regions worldwide to strengthen climate action. There is no doubt that in addition to securing the needed climate finance, climate action will require innovative and transformative solutions to address the far-reaching impacts of climate change. Innovation is hence a key enabler for a more resilient future. And to that end, we've also recently launched the Climate Tech Run competition, which calls upon youth and the international community to introduce new innovative technologies and bring ideas into practice in various fields such as clean energy, smart transportation, food security, as well as promoting a circular economy. Ladies and gentlemen, all the themes that were just highlighted will thoroughly be discussed during today's conference, and I look forward for our constructive engagement for enhanced alignment and complementarity of efforts. Therefore, I would like to sincerely thank everyone who took place in organizing this event and re-emphasizing our shared commitments and our obligations to implement ambitious climate solutions. Together now, we need to open our hearts to act, to do more for our people and for our planet. And to summarize, COP27 is a COP where we are looking to move from pledges to implementation. It's a holistic approach to looking also at adaptation and resilience, as well as loss and damage, and most importantly, finance that is much required despite the shortages that we have just heard, 55% when it comes to gas emissions and 35% when it comes to the shortage in climate finance. I look forward to welcoming all of you in Sharm el-Sheikh next month. We're close to 30 days away. And let's conclude by saying, let's NOWEFI together. Let's make sure that we are able to fulfill the pledges together. Thank you very much.